Today, I'd like to talk about 3 ways that you can be an entrepreneur as an engineer. The first one, and the most obvious, is the one that we all think of when we think of entrepreneur, someone who has a product, like Steve Jobs with the iPhone or something like that. It's a high profile, high-end sort of thing. It's difficult to do, the threshold is really high, but the rewards are great. These are the famous people that we know and think of as entrepreneurs. But in actuality, there are a lot of entrepreneurs that have a much lower profile. The second is to do project-based work where you're selling a service rather than selling your new iPhone. You've got expertise in certain areas of engineering or programming, and you can sell those on a project basis to people that need help. This can be anything from a consultant to getting down and doing coding and design work for that company. There's a third way that this happens, which is kind of a variation of that, which is also contract-based work, working for another company, where someone has found a contract and they put you in at a company, and then you go in and do the engineering. You're not really doing any of the business side of it yourself. You're just showing up just as if you were working for that company. But in fact, your paycheck is coming from a different third-party company. But it's still basically an employment style relationship. It's a variation of entrepreneurship, but not as much entrepreneurial as number 2. It could easily be a stepping stone to getting to number 2, where you're finding your own clients and building your own business based off of that. The big advantage of finding your own clients is that you can then come in perhaps with a team rather than just you as an individual. The contracting type of arrangement is generally you are being placed as an individual at a company. So there's no possibility of growing the company. You've got your own hours that you can sell, and when you're out of hours, you're out of marketable skill. There's a fourth variation, which I'm going to throw in there, which is doing the same sort of thing as contracting, project-based work, entrepreneurial thinking, you can do while you're at your current job as a company, as an employee of another company. Think of what your work is as being something that you're submitting to your client, which is your boss. So rather than just doing what you're asked to do, actually think about the value that you're bringing to that relationship and how you are serving your boss as if he or she were a client. That is a great way to start building your mindset toward entrepreneurial thinking, where you're going out and finding those projects on your own. And if you've done a lot of work thinking of that relationship between employer and employee that same way, that will translate very nicely into the contracting world. That's what I did in my career. I worked at a company that did project-based work. I was an employee of that company. I worked for them for 10 years, learning how this all worked and kind of going through the steps in my mind of making the shift of thinking of the value proposition of what I'm bringing as part of my contribution to the project. That, for me, was a springboard to be able to then go off on my own and to do that looking for other clients. And I've been doing that for over 20 years now. So I would encourage you to work on that mindset of entrepreneurship wherever you are, whether you have a great product idea, or if you're out there beating the streets, finding clients with projects, or if you're out there talking to recruiters, being placed in project-based contract work, or even if you're working for someone, start getting your mind into the entrepreneurial mindset so you're ready to spring on to one of those other stages and increase your abilities to scale as an entrepreneur.